In the older environment where that we didn't have things changing on us so much, people felt that they needed to be a subject matter expert to lead. But today this is not the case. You have to be the type of person that is able to take your best guess at what people are talking about, put an image of that up, and then start working with them until you can find out exactly what the right thing is. So whenever I'm in this situation and I feel like that I'm exposing how little that I know about something, I look to Lincoln. So this is a great quote that I've looked to at many times in my life, and it says, and this was actually hanging over his law office the whole time that he practiced law there: "I do the very best I know how, the very best I can, and I mean to keep doing so until the end." This is a very, very key thing, and when you study great leaders as I have, you understand that they have an attitude, a fail-forward type of attitude. Now, in project management, we call that progressive elaboration, but what I've changed it just a little bit is to call it progressive collaboration, because you have to be able to lead collaboration and work with people until we get a group consensus in terms of what the right thing to do is. Now, one quick thing is that here's another quote, and it's by this fellow who said, "I keep doing the wrong thing and the wrong thing until somebody tells me the right things to do, and I'm not going to stop." And the funny thing about this is from a guy that's on our team, eqseminars, and he was pretty downtrodden when he mentioned this because he was feeling kind of bad. But I thought it was pretty neat because recently I showed him this presentation, and he had me keep flipping back between the Lincoln quote and this quote, and he goes, "I am Abraham Lincoln." He goes, "That's just like Lincoln." And I said, "Yeah, and that's why you're so successful here, is because you just don't stop until you figure out what the right thing to do is." And that's our job. So that demonstrates the idea, the key principle behind progressive collaboration. It also demonstrates that there are great leaders all around us, and that whenever we work hard to become a good level 5 leader, we unleash that capability of being level 5 leaders in the people all around us. So there is a diagram that has been around ever since I can remember, and it is a picture of a tree with a tire swing on it. And essentially what it shows is what was asked for versus what was delivered. And this particular diagram, I had to cut it up, kind of dismember it, because usually it shows what was delivered, and that's the tree sawed in half and up on stilts and all this type of thing. But I use this as a way to cognitively let people know, start with that diagram, start with the tree all cut up and that type of thing. And people are going to laugh at you, and they're going to go, "Are you crazy? This is not what we want." Well, then you show it back to them and say, "Okay, let's see what it is that you want." You're going to draw that again, and then it's going to get a little closer. It's not going to be right. But then after that, you will draw it one more time, and then it will be what you want to do. So this is progressive collaboration, working with a team to be wrong until you figure out what the right thing to do is. And it's okay to be wrong as long as you're doing the right things. And so we have a pretty negative attitude because of the way that we're geared toward conflict, because conflict is something that will physically hurt us. If we have an altercation with someone, then our bodies are telling us you are going to get injured. Avoid conflict. But in a civilized world, conflict is a good thing, and we need to get after that conflict, and we have to confront conflict. So again, looking to one of the best leaders, Abraham Lincoln, says, "When making a decision, I know that I have it about right when I have angered equal numbers on both sides." In our project management world, there is a guy that's in a PMP prep class that came up to me, and he goes, "What do you think the best resolution method is for resolving conflict?" He goes, "Is it compromise, is it smoothing, or is it confrontation?" And before I could answer him, he goes, "It's confrontation." And he goes, "Do you know why I'm right?" He goes, "I'm right because it says so in the PMBOK." And he was just fascinated with this for a week. He kept asking everybody this question, because finally he had the permission that he needed to be able to say, "I'm going to get out there, I'm going to shake things up, and things are going to be a little bit not pleasant, but we're going to get to the bottom of things." And whenever you think about this, when do you want this conflict? Do you want it after you implement your pharmaceutical program, or after the building that you've built, or after the software is up and people are trying to use it, or do you want it before? So this is something that we have to do, and we have to give people permission to do this. We have to give people permission to get things wrong until they get it right. We have to let our management know that we're doing this. We have to let our stakeholders know that we're doing this. And we have to create an environment where that this is not only acceptable, but it's what we're doing. So there's a trick that you can use for conflict confrontation in order to be able to bring on the conflict but then diffuse it. When the left brain starts to override the right brain and says, get me out of here because you're going to get me hurt, but the right brain is trying to tell the left brain, hold on, we've got something to learn here, we're not going to get hurt, then you can use humor effectively on your team. And so this was an example of humor that we used. One of our architects, he would ask people to draw things, and then he would come tell me to say, that doesn't tell me anything, and he'd get really worked up about it. That doesn't tell me anything. And so essentially, it was causing a little bit of struggle, and people were like, gosh, this guy is, just really beating me over the head. So one day he showed me a diagram, and I just looked up at him and I laughed, and I said, that doesn't tell me anything. And he started laughing. He goes, well, what do you need it to tell you? And I said, well, that's what you should be asking people that are showing you diagrams. So the other thing that this guy does is, and now we all do it, is if he asks somebody a question and they don't know it, he will come back to me and he goes, well, I talked to him about this, and then they really didn't have a clue about what I was talking about, and that ought to tell you something. So he was in an environment, I had created an environment where that I was asking people to lead that way. And so we had to bring him together because he was actually able to drive the most important architectural questions that we need to ask. But now we told him that we're going to have t-shirts made up that on the front say, that doesn't tell me anything, and then on the back, that ought to tell me something. That ought to tell you something. And so this is pretty funny. I don't know how long we'll get mileage out of it, but it certainly has diffused a lot of conflict, and it's made the software that we're building much more technically sound. So with decisive facilitation, you might be saying, well, wait a minute, I thought facilitators were supposed to be impartial. Well, that's kind of somewhat of an ideal type situation. I don't really know of any companies that are able to afford having a big bank of facilitators that sit around and do nothing but facilitate meetings. As project leaders, you know that we have to facilitate the meetings, and as business analysts, you know that we have to facilitate the meetings. So we have to learn how to be really good facilitators that drive the decision-making process. And so the best facilitators do their work between meetings. They get their questions and they work with all the people to find out what the questions are that need to be answered. And then they come with their image, the picture of what they've got, and then they will ask those questions until they get them all resolved. Now, there's something that I call the magic formula, and if somebody's not doing business requirements quite yet, I will tell them this is how you do it. You take and create an image that's your best guess of what you're doing, and you keep and you put that up there, whether it's a screen or a report or whatever you're trying to do. And then you have three sections. One is called questions, the other one is called requirements, and the other one's called assumptions. And you keep asking questions, and then other folks will ask questions, and as those are answered, if it's something we have to do, it's a requirement. If it's not something we have to do, then it's assumption, because we don't want to lose the fact that we've answered that question. And so while you're doing that, there's going to be this interplay between your questions and answers and then whatever it is that you're wireframing and putting together. But you have to give people the understanding that they have to get up and they can't sit at a table and then just jot and draw things. When people are doing things, I often think, well, gosh, you could be writing your Christmas list or your grocery list for all I know. So the key to this is that you have to get up and you either have to use flip charts or projectors. And so when I first started working where I work now, we bought some additional projectors, and I told the business folks, don't go to a meeting unless there's a projector. And so it was always warmed my heart so much whenever we would walk around and I would see the lights out in the room, the projectors up, and you could see the business requirement document up there on the wall. And there is nothing more viscerally connecting than proving that you're listening to someone and that you are accommodating their most important needs. After we did that, things got really a lot better on our team.